Hi, everyone. If you're here to prep your camera for a night sky adventure with me. So let's get right to our PDF file that you should have gotten through your Dropbox link, and let's get started. All right, so you're here with me today because you're preparing to go on a night sky adventure, and it's going to be great. So to help yourself the most, we have a lot of prep work we need to do to make sure that you're not frustrated in the field and that you have a successful workshop. So let's get started. You need to prepare your camera before we get on location. You need to turn off your long exposure noise reduction, and you need to make sure that you're in continuous shooting mode and not in single mode. A wired remote trigger is highly suggested. Just in case your internal intervalometer has not been tested yet by you and your phone trigger app, you have not tested it for 3 to 4 hours at a time. Imagine coming all this way and spending all this money to not be able to shoot. It has happened, so please bring a wired remote as a backup. All right. One thing you want to change too is your focus. If you have a focus point set to an outer edge of your screen, you want to make sure you change that to the center. All right. Camera manual is required. I suggest downloading it from the internet and bringing it on your phone because it is searchable by terms. So bring that, or you can bring down your paper copy, but I highly suggest the downloadable PDF, which you can find anywhere online. Image stabilization, you have to have it turned off. Newer cameras actually have it in the body. Double check that, make sure, turn it off. If you're not sure, go ahead and Google it or ask your local camera shop. They can help you out with that. It has to be turned off on your lens as well. Otherwise, your images will have squiggle lines. Okay, lens options. You can see the options here. A normal lens is going to work just fine. A 14 isn't always feasible in a group setting, but go ahead and bring it, but make sure you have a backup. And you may want to telephoto zoom during the day if you want to shoot birds or things that are far away. So just think about those options. And for the night sky, when we're going to shoot stars, assuming we're at about aperture, let's say 2.8, we're going to start at ISO 1600 and work up or down from there based on what you see and what you like, and depending on the ambient light conditions. Before you come, download the PhotoPills app so that you can get familiar with using it, as it will help you plan your night sky and visualize your compositions when you get started. So right now, I want you to test your camera, just as the instructions show here. Go ahead and pause this video. This will make sure that all your settings are correct so that you can actually get through a good sequence of night sky images and make sure that everything is working good. So go ahead and pause and give it a shot. All right, a very important subject is about using lights in a group setting. Nobody can walk around completely in the dark, and we don't expect you to. However, we do ask you, if you see this image here, if you're going to use a flashlight, point your light down and cup it so that it looks like this on the ground, so that it doesn't flare everywhere. Please do not use your iPhone, and do not use a headlamp when other people are shooting. And please do not use a red light. I know everybody says to use a red light and it's invisible to cameras. It isn't. And that's great if you're shooting by yourself, but when you're shooting in a group setting, I ask that you do not use the red light. Please use white. Please do not use a headlamp unless we're walking back to our cars and you're not around anybody's cameras, and that you please cup and point your lights downward. Let me show you an example of what happens when you don't do that. So imagine this was your camera and you paid all this money to come on a workshop, and some guy, which they did, walked through our shot with a headlamp on. Well, it's not very clear here, but I ended up having to take those 4 frames out of my shot, which puts huge gaps in the stars and is very unappealing because these images are not salvageable. You see how they've completely flared off the lens, and the actual stars have actually disappeared. So don't be that person. Point your lights down, and please be as respectful as possible as you can when walking around other people's cameras. All right, next, which is really important, is composition with your stars. Why should you shoot north, south, east, or west? And is it that important? Absolutely. It's just as important as the tree or the rock that you've decided to shoot. So in your Dropbox, there is a quick start video, how to use your PhotoPills app in live AR mode, which we'll do when we're actually there. But think about the direction. This is what north looks like, southeast, etc. Let me show you some examples. So if you're going to shoot north, you use your PhotoPills app or a compass pointing north. North will be the center of the circle you see. And you want to compose your shot. Do you want it right over the Joshua tree? Did you want it here to the left? Well, you just move around your subject that you're shooting to decide where you want that to be. Give it lots of forethought and it will make a huge impact in your final image. When you're shooting east or west, I call these convergence trails. It gives a nice 45. It can really play into your image and make it really nice. All right, Milky Way shooting. Bristlecone Pines is one of the best places to shoot Milky Way. I love it there. But you want to shoot it with as little noise as possible. And digital noise is all that grain that you see when you're shooting long exposure. So an option is called stacking. Stacking is where you shoot 3 to about 15 images of the Milky Way at the same time in complete sequential order, one right after the other, which is why a wired remote is actually perfect. You do not move the camera or the tripod. You later process them in a program such as Starry Landscapes Stacker, and we will work later on this in post-processing. But the reason I'm explaining it to you now is if you want to do that, you're going to have to shoot it in sequence, just like I explained above. Your foreground will need to be composited back in due to the movement of the merged images. So you got to make sure that your foreground isn't like an ancient huge tree going right through the middle of your image, because that will be a little tough. It can be done, but those take some really high-end composition or compositing skills. All right. So here's some information on stacking the images and what you should shoot them at. So you can keep those with you when we're shooting as a reference point. If you have a tracker and you have tested it and used it before, you're welcome to bring it. I do not suggest you buying one and bringing it along for the first time on this shoot. There are so many other things we're doing. You will be completely overwhelmed and you will not have a good time. Unless you're familiar with your tracker, I do not suggest bringing one. All right, these are just some options for you. Frequently asked questions. Can I use a Bluetooth or an in-camera intervalometer? Yes. But I only suggest doing that if you have tested 300 or more frames before and had no problems. However, I have seen people have problems out of nowhere with their cameras. They are digital items. They do act crazy sometimes. Always have a wired backup. You just can't imagine how horrible it feels to spend all that money, all that gas, all that time, and then not be able to shoot. It has happened. So it's a very inexpensive insurance policy just to make sure you will have the ability to shoot, okay? I highly suggest bringing more than one camera. However, a mistake people make is they forget 2 of everything else, 2 tripods, double up on batteries, double up on cards, everything. So don't forget that. We don't shoot during the day. It's not a 24-hour workshop. It's at nighttime. So we, 9-ish hours at night, depending on how long you can stay up. So you might want to think about things that you can do during the day. Most likely you will be sleeping, but you will have some time to go explore and shoot some things on your own. All right. Make sure that everything on your camera that I've explained earlier, you absolutely test it 100% before you come to the workshop. Mechanical things do go wrong. Triggers don't work, and it's better to figure that out before you get where we are, where we don't have any Google or internet service. Additional info, mark those tripods. The last 3 workshops I had, at least one participant had their camera moved by another participant who thought it was theirs, completely ruining their time lapse. Imagine planning a 6-hour shot and in the middle of that, somebody ruins it and there's nothing I can do or that person can do to make it right. So don't be that person. Make 100% sure it is your tripod before moving it. Put a piece of colored tape or something on your tripod that can identify it as yours. Eat a good meal before we meet in the evening. Your next meal will be hours away and you cannot rely on snacks alone. It's not a good idea. We're in the middle of nowhere. And if you feel sick or need to pass out, it's not a good situation for anybody. So please eat a really good meal before we meet. Hiking. This is Bristlecone Pines. We are a high altitude, and we will be walking about half a mile on an angled, uneven surface. So make sure that what you take with you, you can carry. Wagons of any kind, I don't think will be feasible where we're going. So make sure that you have a way to easily carry the things that you need. Sleep. You will work throughout the night and not get your normal sleep. I've had some people get upset in the past that I didn't fully disclose that during the night sky workshop that you wouldn't be sleeping that much at night. So full disclosure, you won't get much sleep. However, you're free to set your camera and take a nap right there on the ground, or go back to your car if other people are watching your camera and you feel comfortable. That's definitely an option. Bring comfort items. If you're sitting out in the stars, hanging out with friends for 3 to 4 or even 6 to 7 hours, you want to be warm just in case, and you want to make sure you have plenty of drinks and snacks to keep you comfortable. Clothing. Whether we're in the desert, whether we're up in the altitude of Bristlecone, you never know. You have to be prepared for all extremes. Nothing worse than being in Bristlecone Pine, 70 degrees all day long, sometimes even 80 degrees, and then it's 28 degrees at night. It happens. Be prepared for that. Camera bag. You may not want to set it on the ground where it gets dirty. So bring like a plastic trash bag, like a 13-gallon that you can lay down, set it on there, folds up real nice and tucks into your camera bag. Number one thing is to not get overwhelmed. If you're new to astrophotography, all of this info can be completely overwhelming. That's why we try to do as much as we can before we go, so that you don't have those feelings and that you don't get frustrated and then want to go home. If you are feeling that way, focus on one thing at a time, getting one single image. Sometimes when we're trying to multitask and do too many things at once, it can be overwhelming. So just let me know if you're feeling overwhelmed, and I'll guide you if you need the guidance on what to focus on. All right, let's talk about the star tracker again. If you don't know what that is, that's okay. You don't need to know. But if you do have one and you're thinking of bringing it, I need you to make sure that you test it and you know how to set yours up. I use the shoot, move, shoot. If you have a different tracker, I'm not going to know how to set that up. That's a hardware issue. I can help you use it. I can help you with your settings, but I cannot help you with your polar focus or anything like that, because those are mechanical things just like your camera that you need to figure out before you come. So you're more than welcome to bring it. It's just you have to know how to use it before you come. All right. Sony users, if you are a Sony user, we have a few things we need to talk about. Focus assist must be disabled. Continuous autofocus must be disabled. In order to get into bulb mode, which I don't know if you're going to need that, but just in case we do, some Sonys cannot be in continuous mode. They have to be in single in order to get into bulb mode. So if you are shooting with a Sony, please confirm with me that all these functions are turned off. If you cannot find them, please refer to your local camera shop or Google to get that taken care of. Again, let me reiterate, I am an expert in photography and not an expert in all cameras, makes, models, and menus. It is your responsibility to know and learn your camera. Okay. Location sharing. For this Bristlecone Pine trip, I am taking you to a very special place that cannot, should not be easily shared. All right. So if you're going to post on Instagram, don't tag it. Don't say where it's at. And if your local camera friend says, hey, how do I get there? Ask them to look it up. All right. Rangers don't like it. People who easily spread that information cause a lot of damage to these places. And while the friend that requested it from you may not purposely do that, but what if that friend geotags it on Instagram and then 100 other people go up there and then they destroy our natural resource? So I've been asked to not freely share this information, but because it looks like we're going to have a small group, I'm willing to take you guys up there. However, if there's somebody in the group that does not agree with that, then we can cancel that location that we're going to, and we have a lot of others to choose from. So it is very important that if you do not agree to this policy, just let me know and we will adjust our itinerary. And this is particularly requested by rangers. Okay. All right, I've provided a vague camping and gear checklist. Of course, you may need more things, but this is something I use that maybe may help you a little bit. And last but not least, this is a photographer quick check that you can print and keep in your bag. This, again, this is all in your Dropbox folder. You can print that. It's just kind of a quick start so that once you're not in my workshop and able to call or yell to me for help, I want you to be able to go out on your own eventually and shoot by yourself, maybe another time. So this is a great reference to have. All right, so that's the end of this. All right, so I hope this information helps you prepare your camera and be better prepared to not get frustrated in the field. I do a lot in the field. I'm usually running 3 cameras. I am highly multitasking at all times. That does not mean you have to, okay? If all you want to do is get 1 star trail and that's all you can focus on, I will help you do that. If you want to shoot 3 different things at the same time, I will help you do that as well, all right? But if you are going to multitask, you need to do as much prep as possible based on what I've shown you and preparing your cameras and preparing knowing your equipment, all right? I hope this has been some help to you and I hope to see you in the field really soon and I hope we make some great art. Catch you guys later.